Scientists ran an experiment where they deliberately frightened people during sleep and then tested their responses while they were fully awake. The people who experienced the most fear during sleep performed significantly better at handling real fear when they were awake. The more frightening the dream, the calmer and more capable the person was in actual dangerous situations. That result is not a coincidence, and it is not a side effect of the experiment. That is exactly what nightmares were deliberately designed by your brain to do to you. Your brain is not malfunctioning when it gives you a nightmare, and nothing has gone wrong inside your mind. It is running one of the most misunderstood and underestimated protective systems in the entire human brain. And once you understand what it is actually doing, the worst nights of your life will never look the same again. Let's start with what is physically happening inside your brain the moment a nightmare begins. During REM sleep, your brain is operating at almost the same level of activity as when you are fully awake. The amygdala, which is the brain region most responsible for detecting and processing fear and emotional threats, is running at full power. Your visual cortex is generating imagery that is just as vivid and detailed as anything you experience with your eyes open. Your motor cortex is sending signals as if your body is actually moving through the scenario your brain is creating. And your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, reason, and rational evaluation, is significantly quieter than it normally would be. This very specific combination is exactly why nightmares feel so completely and overwhelmingly real while they are happening. You have full emotional processing running, full visual generation running, and almost no rational filter operating at the same time. Your brain is running a full simulation, and it is convincing because it was deliberately engineered over millions of years to be convincing. The fear you feel during a nightmare is not accidental. It is not a glitch, and it is not your brain failing you. It is a feature your brain constructed on purpose, because a simulation that does not produce genuine fear teaches your nervous system absolutely nothing useful. Think of it this way. If a fire drill felt completely calm and pleasant, you would learn nothing about how your body actually responds to fire. The discomfort built into the drill is precisely what makes the training work at all. Your brain understood and applied this exact principle long before humans ever invented fire drills. Now here is where the research reveals something that most people find genuinely difficult to believe at first. When scientists analyzed thousands of nightmare reports collected from people across vastly different cultures and backgrounds, they discovered a pattern nobody expected. The content of nightmares is not random, and it is not personal in the way most people assume it is. Being chased through a place you cannot escape from, no matter how fast you run or how many turns you take. Being physically overwhelmed or frozen in place, unable to move or call for help, no matter how desperately you try. Losing someone you love suddenly and completely without any warning or ability to stop it. Failing catastrophically at something important in front of people whose opinions matter to you deeply. These exact same categories appear in nightmare reports across every culture researchers have ever studied in depth. People who have never met each other, who speak entirely different languages, who live on opposite sides of the world, are having the same nightmares. Not similar nightmares and not vaguely related nightmares, but structurally identical nightmares built around the same core threat categories. Researchers also found that the frequency of specific nightmare types correlates directly with the real-world threat environment a person lives in. People experiencing higher stress, greater uncertainty, or more perceived danger in their daily lives report significantly more chase and entrapment nightmares. This is your brain's threat detection system allocating more training resources to the categories of danger it considers most relevant to your current situation. Your brain is not generating random, unpleasant imagery to disturb your sleep. It has inherited a specific threat library built from hundreds of thousands of years of human survival experience. And it runs targeted drills on the contents of that library every single night while you sleep. Every nightmare is a training session for a specific category of danger your brain has decided you need to be prepared for. Now here is why some people experience nightmares far more frequently than others do. Nightmare frequency increases dramatically during periods of intense stress, significant life transitions, and sustained emotional difficulty. Think about the periods in your own life when your nightmares were most intense or most frequent. A difficult relationship, a high-stakes work situation, a period of financial pressure, preparing for something you were genuinely afraid of failing at. Your brain detected elevated threat signals during those periods and responded by scheduling more training sessions during sleep. This is not a sign that something is wrong with you mentally or emotionally. It is your brain doing exactly what it was built to do, increasing the intensity of preparation when it determines the stakes are higher. A coach pushes athletes harder before a major competition, not because something is wrong, but because the situation demands a higher level of readiness. Your brain applies exactly the same logic to your nightmare frequency when it perceives your waking environment as more demanding than usual. This is also why people who have been through genuinely traumatic experiences often have nightmares that directly replay what happened to them. The brain is attempting to process and integrate an experience that was simply too overwhelming to handle fully in the moment it occurred. It returns to that scenario during sleep repeatedly because it is still working on finding a way to file the experience correctly. It is trying to reduce the raw emotional charge attached to the memory so that the memory can eventually be stored the way other memories are stored. For most people who go through difficult periods, this process eventually completes successfully on its own. The nightmares become less frequent and less intense as the brain finishes the processing work it needed to do. Now, here is something almost nobody gets told, and it is the single thing that most changes the experience of having a nightmare. There is a moment in the middle of the night after a nightmare ends when everything feels wrong. Your heart is still beating fast, your body is convinced something dangerous just happened, and your mind is trying to separate what was real from what was not. That moment in the dark feels exactly like a malfunction inside your own brain. It feels like evidence that something in your brain is broken or out of control. But that feeling of something being wrong is a fundamental misreading of what actually just happened. What actually happened is that your brain ran a training simulation and it ran it correctly. The fear you felt was not a side effect and it was not collateral damage. It was the entire purpose of the exercise, and the fact that you felt it fully means the system worked exactly as it was designed to work. Researchers who specialize in nightmare treatment have identified two approaches that reduce nightmare frequency more reliably than anything else they have tested. The first is what they call image rehearsal therapy, where you take a recurring nightmare and consciously rewrite its ending while you are fully awake. You spend a few minutes imagining the nightmare scenario, but this time guiding it toward a different conclusion, one where you are not overwhelmed or helpless. Doing this while awake gives your brain a revised version of the scenario to work with, and over time, the brain begins running the new version instead of the original. The second approach is immediate written engagement with the nightmare content right after waking, writing down what happened in as much detail as you can remember, and then asking yourself honestly what in your current waking life the nightmare might connect to. This gives your brain an alternative pathway to process the material consciously, rather than leaving it to run the simulation again and again during sleep. People who practice either of these techniques consistently report a significant reduction in both frequency and intensity of nightmares within a few weeks. Not because the brain stops running training sessions altogether, but because it no longer needs to run the same session repeatedly once the processing work is done. So the next time you wake up in the middle of the night from a nightmare with your heart still racing and your body still convinced the danger was real, remember what actually just happened. Your brain was not torturing you, and it was not malfunctioning, and nothing inside you has broken. It was protecting you using a threat library assembled over hundreds of thousands of years of human experience. It was running a drill that your ancestors ran too, in their own sleep, in their own version of the dark. And it was making absolutely sure that when something genuinely frightening arrives in your waking life, you will not face it completely unprepared. What is the nightmare that keeps coming back for you, the one your brain has decided you need to rehearse over and over again? Drop it in the comments below and let us know. Subscribe to Whisper Files for more things your brain never told you. The scariest part is not the darkness, but what it hides.